Step 2 on the MIDI and audio effects um, tutorial. And for this, I'm going to quickly kind of recap the end of the last tutorial, just how to get some MIDI clips going. In each of these tracks, I need to just get some basic notes in. And essentially, I really recommend that you try and just put in some long notes at the beginning just to trigger some sounds, and then later on we'll kind of go in and fine tune it. But just to kind of get us started, what I recommend is you two-finger tap on your anywhere in the open space here. And down by where it says fixed grid, if you set it to 1 bar, then when you put in a note, it will automatically fill up the whole bar. And like I say, I kind of recommend you do like 1 to 3 notes just to kind of, and they can be totally random, just as long as they're triggering some sounds, and you'll kind of see where we're going with this in a minute. So I'm just going to do that on all the clips. I'll switch that to 1 bar, give myself some random notes, and one more time. Just do 2 on that one for now. Okay, so we've got some MIDI. Now we need to start putting some MIDI effects in. If I just push play right now on all of these, you can go over here to the master and trigger, and it'll play all of them at the same time. It's definitely not. I mean, it's we got some sound, but it's not an ambient piece yet. So I'm gonna go over here to MIDI effects now, and these are the different categories you have for the MIDI effects. And we'll just start with the top, the arpeggiator. Let's see what that does. So I'm gonna start by using that on the bells. I think that's a good place to hear what it's doing. So to use a MIDI effect, just click and drag and drop it on whichever track you want to add it to. And you'll see down at the bottom, here's my bells and all of the tone controls with that. And then I've got the arpeggiator here. So these are all the controls that you can use to manipulate the arpeggiator. And we'll go into these in greater detail in class, but just show you some basics first of all. So if I'm going to stop these other 2 just so we can just hear the bells. You can hear, instead of playing the notes at the same time, now it's alternating between them, right? So that's kind of like level 1 of the arpeggiator, is it'll just alternate back and forth. But we can change that more. You can change the rate. So that's like how frequently it's doing right now. It's doing 1/8, which means it's going to change between them 8 times every bar. So that's what you're hearing. So you can turn that up or down. You can make it slower or faster. Okay. Style, there's a bunch of different ways. Right now it's just going up, so it's just alternating back and forth. You can have it be random, down and up. All these different things are going to do different things, and the more notes you put in, the wilder it's going to be. Another thing that I like to mess with is the steps and distance. That's going to be like how far away does it step away from the notes that you have plugged in, and this is how many different steps it can make, and then this is the distance of those steps, right? So you can keep them pretty close by keeping that distance a small number, or you can go pretty big. And so now those 2 notes are like triggering a whole bunch of different notes, right? Okay, so that's our arpeggiator. And let's do some more with this. So with the arpeggiator, I can add another MIDI effect called chord, and now it's taking each of those notes and playing them separately. And now chord will actually turn each of these notes into a chord. And at first, it doesn't do anything. You have to actually turn some of these shift values on. And what those will do is it'll add a note based on those settings. So one note will be +5 steps up, and the other one will be -4 steps down. So now it's doing chords. And you can just change those settings until you get a chord that you like. So that just kind of shows you how you can like stack these. I could also do them in a different order, so you can grab an effect and we could do the chord first and then arpeggiate it afterwards, which will turn it back into single notes, but it'll give it more information in the arpeggiator because it's feeding it this chord now, right? Okay. Let's take the chord off. I'm going to leave the arpeggiator on, just show you a few of these. The effect track, don't mess with that. That allows, that's just another way to like multiply these and stack them on top of each other. Note length I'm not going to get into, and pitch either, because I just don't feel like they're the right ones for this assignment. But random's really great, and just like it sounds, it's going to randomize what comes into it, right? And again, this one starts out not by doing much. You have to turn up the chance and scale values and choices to get different random generators, right? And you can just play around with that. Okay, so you can see it gets going a lot of different things. And again, order matters on this. If you do random first, it's going to generate different things. It's still going to be random, but it'll be a different kind of random. And then another great one to use with this, if you wanted to kind of like converge all this so that it kind of stuck to one key, a scale is really good to put it on. With the scale effect, all this randomness comes through, and it has to match up with whatever key that you want it to do, right? So right now it's set to the bass key of C major, but I could change that to E if I wanted to. And then basically any note that comes in here that's not the key of E will automatically get changed to the key of E. So this is a good way to kind of like make sure everything fits in the same family. If you put a scale function on at the end of each of these chains, it's going to keep it in a certain vibe, right? So, and we're going to basically do the same kind of thing with each of these. So if I put a random on the Africa drums, and let's stop this one now, we'll play the Africa drums. And then every time it comes through, it's going to choose some different sounds to trigger. And sometimes if you look at these little yellow lights here, it's choosing different notes each time. Some of them are outside of the sample bound, so they're not making any sounds. And then sometimes one might be in the sound. Sometimes all three might be in the sound. It's totally random, right? We can kind of help control that a little bit by, you know, taming down the choices and the chance a little bit, and maybe taking down the scale a little bit. That'll kind of keep it more close to the box. So you can kind of mess around with those values. I actually like when it triggers silence, though, because then it sometimes you'll get no sound out of it, right? So that can be a cool thing too. And then I like to have some randomness in the rhythm too, so that's where an arpeggiator can be really useful. And they've got random on here too. And so if you look, there's the yellow dot. That's where all the notes triggered. And you can see only sometimes is it, you know, fixating on the spot where we actually have samples in. So again, you know, it's just a matter of kind of fine-tuning that distance, steps, values to get those different, how busy do you want your rhythm, basically, right? And then same thing with the all-alone pad. It's a pad, and so, you know, arpeggiator and chords work really good with the pad. Let's get all these playing together. Okay, it's a little bit chaotic right now. And so here's where you kind of fine-tune some of your settings in the MIDI effects to kind of maybe slow it down a little bit, or tame it down. In the next step, we're going to be talking about audio effects, and that's where you can really change the sounds and kind of mellow them out too. So that can get you the rest of the way there. But you want to try and you know, minimize the craziness. MIDI effects can get really out of control, especially when you start stacking them on top of each other. So minimizing the kind of craziness of it, but still allowing it to be kind of randomly and evolving over time. And another thing you can do as you're going through these steps is, you know, if you change the notes that are the trigger notes, that will change your outcome result as well. And so you might want to go back into some of your, you know, original notes you chose and maybe choose some lower ones or put them closer together or further apart to get some different type of variations on that. So just experiment and have fun with it and see what happens. And next, like I say, next step we'll talk about audio effects.